Oh. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Habits You Love. Today, I have on a guest, Michelle LaRoi with Happy Fits. I'm excited to get a little bit into her story today. I came across you on social media, on Instagram. I think your handle and your little tagline caught my eye, and I was like, oh, what's
Oh,
this? And of course, I just went down the rabbit hole, clicked on everything, went to your website, and I loved your message. So,
thank you.
we're going to start with just a little bit more of your story, and then we'll get into how you started Happy Fits, but just how, in however much detail you want to go into, kind of explain where you are from and your background, and then we'll get into why you started your
Yeah.
amazing apparel line.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I am from the East Coast. I grew up in a little small town in Maryland, lived there my whole life. All my cousins, all my family's from Chicago, but it was just me and my family in Maryland. And yeah, that's I moved to Denver. I did a little bit of nursing school, and I'm so happy to have moved from Denver. But yeah, my story is one that a lot of just realized is very different from my peers. When I was 13 years old, you're going about your everyday. I lost my only sibling, who was 17 at the time, in a car accident. So it's one of those things that was just like you're living your life, and then boom, just everything stops. Uh, uh, and she was in high school, and I was in eighth grade. So it was like the most pivotal developmental time. And we weren't close at all. She was a dancer. I was a little tomboy who did soccer. And so our relationship wasn't super close, but it was still something that just one second you have it, and then the next you don't.
Yeah, obviously, I'm sure rocked your family, rocked their world.
Yeah.
Ugh, I can't even imagine. Was it her driving? Was
Yes, it
okay.
with her driving, and ooh, it was like right outside of our neighborhood. So that's what yeah, it was just a reminder like every single day. And
Yeah.
I just and that's from there on, that's my story of essentially what I'm doing now. And we can deep dive into it.
Yeah. So
I'll let you.
obviously you were
Yeah.
13 and I'm sure you didn't
Mhm.
the next couple of months or year deal with it as a 13-year-old wouldn't know how to do. What
Yeah.
can you remember from just the day it happened to afterward? And
Mhm.
like how did your family change? How did the dynamic
Oh.
change? What was going on in the home?
So it's such big. It's one of those things that no one knows how to deal with this
Yeah.
type of stuff. There's no book of what to do. We did the best we could. I was so active in sports and had such a small town feel that we really don't know what to do. So we just continued forward. And that's where I took a different route where I was fully everything with soccer went all everything 24/7,
Mhm.
7 days a week was soccer, and I'm removed from it now. It was, 20 years, almost 20 years ago. It'll be
Mm.
this next year's 20 years. So it took me I'm learning all about it now.
Yeah.
I never grieved. I learned about it now. There's all these, like, stages of grief and
Yeah.
how you go about it, and my mom and dad had each other. I had my built-in best friend just completely ripped from my life, and so it was not that it's like me versus my parents, but they're in different stages of their life. I was in such a developmental state of my life and ended up compartmentalizing everything. And we can talk all about therapy and that process and everything, but I just tried to compartmentalize this huge trauma and move on with my life,
Yeah,
which
just
is it was just sad, but
yeah, adults do that. I did that
yeah.
when I was 25 and lost my mom. So I can imagine 13, probably just have no idea how to even feel the feelings, feel the emotions. Did
Yeah.
your parents ever sit down with you and really try to talk it out? Were they ever, let's talk
Yeah.
about it? Like, how do you feel?
And so you asked if you remember like the day it happened. I remember like everything so vividly, but then because of everything that I compartmentalized, I started to black things out. So I don't remember certain things. And this is stuff that I've later uncovered in therapy, but I just don't. It's such a traumatic thing that your brain just, nope, fight or flight. Nope, you got to keep. moving on with each day. There were times, there were conversations. They did a great job at grieving with each other, and they were, let's keep some things around to remember her. And I just completely I wanted nothing to do with it. And so I've learned how I dealt with grief was different. Everyone handles grief differently. And I pushed this thing out of my life as if she never existed. And that's what I'm like realizing is what I was doing. And we talked about it, but I think I was just like, no, that makes me sad. I don't want to be sad. I have to be strong. So it's that kind of mentality.
Yeah, definitely. And at 13, you probably just want to be with my friends. Like I'm kind of
Yeah.
in the middle of this, like going through kind of
Yeah.
puberty and
Yeah.
maturing. And this is the last thing that we want to deal with when they were that age. And like you said, it's such a pivotal time. It's almost like were you transitioning into high school at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing is I was going to do high school soccer and she was the dancer and it was going to be cool because she would have been a senior and I would have been the freshman. And yeah, 13, I look back at it now and that is just learning about all those developmental stages. That is just, we did the best we could
Yeah.
and really trying to surround myself and try to find this normal. And everybody has something and there's no such thing as normal. And
Mhm.
didn't real I it's like a bubble almost. I didn't realize it until I removed myself from the trauma in a sense that y there's no such thing as
You're
normal,
right.
and you have I don't know, it's just it's a lot it's
Yeah.
wild.
You
I'm like
can't.
having just
Yeah.
talking about it now with you,
I
I'm like,
know.
"Ah."
I know. You lost someone super close in your
Mhm.
family. It's so weird losing someone in your immediate family. Like, it's just
Immediate
the
family.
weirdest feeling. My fiance actually just recently lost his dad, and I don't even know. It's the weirdest feeling just going
You
from you can pick up the phone and
call
then
them,
the next day you cannot.
it's like you blink and
Yeah. So luckily he's older, he's mature enough to deal with it now, whereas when I was 25 and even obviously you were 13, but even
yeah.
25, I was so unaware of how to deal with emotions and feel feelings. And that just goes
Yes.
to show that it doesn't matter how old or young you are, whenever you have to start dealing with feelings, it could
Yeah.
come at any point in your life. Like I know 20-year-olds that are so aware, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like
I
what I wouldn't
know.
give to like
To
be
be
how you are when
yeah.
I was that age, but I'm thankful that I actually like, did actually realize at some point in my
Mhm.
life. So you said it's been 20 years, which is crazy.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah. What finally made you realize that you needed to talk about it and heal through this? And actually,
Yeah.
when did that happen?
And that's what you were just touching on. It's such we see the generational things and how mental health and therapy have progressed, and there's still so much that we need to talk about. And it took me, I want to say I was 28 a couple years ago. It took me almost like 15 years. It's okay. Why are these things triggering me? Or why are my cousins or why are my close friends all hitting these milestones and what is going on with me? Like, why? There's obviously something that was huge that I tried to push out and I didn't want to hit these milestones because my sister wasn't going to be there to see it. So it was a combination of kind of living this alter kind of life. Like people would ask, are you an only child? And I just not wanting to be a burden, to dampen the mood, to be like, oh, I know I just met you, but hey, I lost my only sibling when I was really young. It was just these conversations that I just didn't really want to have. And so people thought I was an only child. And then I'm like, I'm not telling the truth. I'm not telling my story. I did nursing school. I was always searching for a career. Like my parents are just like, okay, when are you going to be done? But I did nursing school in DC, and that's when I learned, I'm not a licensed therapist or psychiatrist, none of that, but I learned all about psychology and high functioning anxiety and these things that I've never talked about, touched. Oh, I don't know how to process my feelings. You throw down a feelings wheel in front of me. I'm like, I don't know how to. I really don't know how to describe how I was feeling because I just tucked everything away. And it was just one day, it just snapped. And I moved from DC to Colorado. And this transition has been the biggest turning point in my healing journey. So I think, well, now, wow, it's 20 years. I'm doing things like this and talking about her, which is, I lived this big chunk of my life not talking about her. And it's like I'm healing, trying to accept what I was and how I was and moving forward from there. It's a whirlwind.
Yeah, we are very parallel with how we dealt with everything. Just
Yeah.
scoot it under the rug, just act like nothing's wrong.
Nothing's
And same with
happening.
you. I moved away to California from where I was from after all that happened, just because I was like, I don't want anyone asking me about my
Asking
life
how,
or
yeah.
people knowing you being like, how are you? All these things were
Mhm.
going on in my life. And I was like, if I just move to a whole different state where no one knows who I am, I could actually just create this whole new
Whole
identity.
new, that's what I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. I could just create this whole new identity and no one's gonna pity me or knowing me before and after. It
After.
just, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
very parallel lives that
Wild.
we've lived, just not talking about it, just not feeling the feelings. I just often wonder, like, how different my life would have been if I did actually, like, okay,
Mhm.
this is happening right now.
Yep.
This is life. Just when I was comfortable and ready to talk about it. But it was like, yeah, no, I can't be weak. I can't cry. I can't show
Yeah.
emotion. I got to push through. Just keep doing what I'm doing. I need to be
Mhm.
successful to prove that I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And I don't think
Yeah.
it ever truly works for people. I think
No.
eventually you do hit this rock bottom in your life. And I hope people don't have to get to that point in order
Yeah.
to understand that they need a healing journey. But sometimes that's just what happens.
That's, yeah.
But we both eventually realized it. And what's funny is you said about 28 is
Mhm.
you realize that was the same for me. Mine was like 29.
Yeah.
29, I was like, okay, it's just when, let's see how long, 4 years goes by,
Mhm.
just stuffing and suppressing and not getting it out, it's eventually going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
is, yeah, I just
You're
often
like
wonder, like,
spot on.
yeah, just what would have happened if I actually grieved in the moment as
In
opposed
the
to
moment.
having to go back and reverse it. I always say it's just better to prevent any of this than to have to go back and reverse it. I think it's so much harder to go back
Mhm.
and unpack everything. So, kudos to you for
Yep.
doing that. What yeah, you said just moving to Colorado made you do that,
Mhm.
but was there anything that happened in your life that was like a
I'm
huge
trying
wake up call or was it
to,
just
honestly, it's like the things that you just touched on. It's like not hitting these milestones, not like trying to prove some like myself to others. And I think it's being young and you're trying to create this identity. And I didn't want people to just be like, oh, that's the girl that lost her only sibling. And being in a small town, that's how it felt. I would go everywhere. And it's just there were these little signs. We didn't put like a marker or anything because I was like, I don't want to see that. Moving here, this has been it's such a slower pace of life. I noticed living in DC for a lot of years that it's just go. It's all about your career. It's chasing this lifestyle that you don't talk about your feelings. And once I moved out here, people are, what are you doing? What, no, like, oh, my therapist did this, my therapist did that.
they're
And
way more
I
in tune with
in
themselves?
tune. And it's also a place of healing. Nature is something that I just gravitate towards. I just like being out in just calmness and just smelling the fresh air and no humidity. And the big thing is I never did therapy. So as a 13-year-old, I could have benefited from therapy so much. So my therapy was honestly sports. And I'm grateful for that and the girls that I met and grew up with, but didn't have any therapy. So once I moved out here, it became a little bit easier to find someone. And there's all these resources that I'm stumbling upon. And I have these conversations with my mom, and I'm like, I don't want you to think that I'm coming at you for what we didn't do. That was a situation. It is what it is. How do we go from here? I have to bring it into my life and process everything that happened. And yeah, there wasn't really it was just honestly, I felt like something in me just like, you need help. And eventually that's where I am now. I got it and working on myself. It's an
That's so cool. That's so
everyday
good.
type thing. Even just my sister, that's the trauma I have to work on, but there is so much more
Mhm.
that I need to work on. So,
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things. I
yes,
agree. Colorado is so healing.
something. I'm
When
like,
I
something's in the air.
Yeah, when I was invited, like I was telling you before we started
Mhm.
recording, how I was invited to go out there, and just for whatever reason, my intuition was just like, go. No
Yeah.
matter how you have to get there, what you have to do. We slept on a blow up mattress on the living room floor for 2 months. I just knew I had to get out there. I didn't even know why, but I just felt like God was like, just get out there. And I
Mhm.
did so much healing in Colorado in the mountains. Like you said, just nature. Everyone's living a slower paced life.
Power by fire.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I did a lot of healing in 1 year. And another thing that you had said is you're talking and having these conversations with your mom, and that's amazing. Is she receptive to the past and all of the things maybe she didn't do? Is she more defensive, or is she embracing your journey and then also getting maybe some tools and tips from you?
I think we're learning from each other because she's dealt with a lot of loss in her life too. And that you asked about our like dynamic and how things changed. And I feel like I took on this role where I had to be by myself. Like I talk about this with my therapist. I had to be independent. I could not ask for help because this is what I was dealt with and this is what I had to do. It's almost like we're healing our relationships too, even with my dad. And what is I'm starting to learn it is generational and things that she used to tell me about her dad and how she'd be like, this is how he thinks. And I don't know what we had a conversation this morning and I don't know what it is, if it's just because I have been independent and just myself with them. It's just the two of them and me now. Anytime we have a conversation, it lights this fire under me where I'm like, I'm doing these things to grow. I'm doing these things to heal. What are you doing? Are we still? Because it's like it's the saying you can teach an old dog new tricks, and so I just hope that even if we're not having these conversations one on one, and I hope we get to that, she watches this, she sees this, and she's like understanding that I'm still not trying to push out these years that happened. I'm trying to process them and accept the way that I am now is because of what happened back then and how to move forward from it.
Yeah, process and learn from it and grow from it.
Mhm.
Um, what was I gonna say? Crap, I lost my question, but
I feel like, sorry, I'm just going.
no, I have pregnancy brain over here. I'm like, just completely spaced out. But I did want to say, crap, I completely lost it. I have to edit this part out.
That's okay.
Yeah. So just going back to generational things, like it is crazy to see great grandma, mom, me. And then it's like a whole new perspective on life and like how we're going to do things differently, which is amazing. And it has to stop somewhere. And it's
Somewhere.
not like we can't blame our parents for what they didn't know. Like,
Right.
we know better now. So we're going to do better. So when you know better, you do better. And when someone is just their mentalities, that's just what it is. And all of their
Yeah.
behaviors and their actions is just going off of what their brain is telling them.
Mhm.
So it's just, yeah, once you just hit that point, and I don't even know what it is, but you just know that something's not right and you want to do it differently than what you had. And then also,
Yeah.
what you said is you maybe started therapy because of your sister, but then you deal with that. And then know if you've noticed, then you're like, "Oh, now I see this coming up." And then you
Yeah.
figure that thing out, and then something else
Mhm.
comes up, and then you
And
figure that thing out
and
about
you're like,
yourself, but
oh, that's why I get triggered. And oh, it's that emotional maturity. There's so much online that so many resources that in working with girls that are in their 20s, like early 20s, they are
Mhm.
so with it and in tune. And I'm like, yes, we're doing the work. It's just going to keep getting better and better.
Yes. Oh, yeah, so do you work with younger women?
Yes, I
Okay, so what
do.
do you do
Um,
now currently?
Now, so yeah, sorry, I derailed from that too.
No,
I
you're good.
I work at a gym, and so I did my nursing. I worked in the NICU for a little bit, and that also was like I thought because I dealt with loss that I'd be so like, oh yeah, this is easy. No, hardest thing, probably one of the hardest things in my life too, working in the NICU. So I work at a gym now and I work with young gals who are just graduating college, trying to find their full-time career. And it's such a transitional workspace, but it's just so cool being in the Denver community and meeting and networking and learning that everybody has something. But yeah, they're like, it's everything that I've been doing ties into why I started Happy Fits. And I see things that they wear and I'm like, you guys keep me so young and I want to just I don't want to grow up.
What gym do you work at in Denver?
It's Berries. I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard of
okay,
worked
yeah,
out at a
Barry's
Berries.
Boot Camp.
Yeah,
I
Berries. Yeah.
I never worked out there, but no, I've never done a Barry's class. But yeah, so I'm sure you have a lot of younger people, women that work the front desk probably. Yeah.
Yep.
Similar situation here. I don't do it so much now, but the last year up until a couple months ago, I was also helping run a gym. I was doing the front. I was
Why?
doing social media. I was doing the desk, or I was coaching, and so it is funny to
You're like,
see. Yeah,
you're my long lost
I
long
know.
lost
I
sister.
know. What sign are you?
I'm a Virgo.
Okay, I'm a Capricorn.
Or, okay. I'm like a cusper, but my birthday's in August.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So you're gonna be what, you just turned 33?
I just turned 33.
Okay, and that's to turn 34.
That's, I love this.
I know. Okay, so let's get into why.
Mhm.
How did this idea for Happy Fits come about?
It's seeing all these mental health things, the conversation starting. Streetwear is like the biggest thing right now. And incorporating mental health. I see other girls with similar stories of me, like nursing school or hated my corporate job. So I started doing this and I kept thinking like, I had such imposter syndrome that I just kept like cheering on all these other people and was like, that's so great. Like I was like, why not me? Why not try it? You have something that not a lot of people relate to, but relate in the sense that it's like, oh, mental health, we have our stories. So I wanted to make awareness of grieving and sibling loss, parent loss, things loss, essentially. It's like number one, but also mental health conversation starter. So I've just created, it wasn't even like a COVID thing. I just was like, okay, didn't really work. What can I do next? I love to create things. I love to see things and be like, oh, I can make that. And so I just started doing it and really just making things on my own. And I'd get stopped in the street and I'm like, you know what? I think you can do this. And it was just a pivotal, let's do this. Let's just try kind of moment. Yeah.
Yes, break through the imposter syndrome and just go
Breakthrough.
for it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, so this has been like a couple years in the making?
No. Oh, yes. A couple years in the making.
Yeah.
And then I just launched it this March
Oh,
or
okay.
past March.
Yeah, so apparel and merchandise, your pieces are definitely, like you said, conversation starters. I love
Mhm,
that because that's just what we need to do as a society, is just have
mhm.
a conversation. And so many people are so reluctant to just open their mouths and talk about what
And
they're
talk.
going through.
Yeah.
It's the hardest step to break through. What I've seen is everyone's just keep the shame inside, keep everything
Mhm,
inside. And I love that your apparel is just that. It's like a reminder. If I like, I create apparel too, and I'm like, I just
mhm.
want to
Yeah.
see people like see it and then provoke their thoughts almost, or help them if they have a bad day, or
Yes.
inspire them or motivate
Yep.
them. And so what feedback have you gotten from Happy Fits? Just like whether you're wearing it or when people order, what's like the biggest feedback?
I get stopped all the time and people say, "Oh, I love that. Like, where'd you get that?" And it's such a conversation starter. Oh, I hate talking about myself, but I'm like, "Oh, I do this. I make things and I see other things out there," which is so great. I think for me, it was like, I want to have these pieces that have my meaning behind it. And my friend texted me yesterday and he was in Disney World and was wearing my shirt. And he said some man thanked him for wearing a shirt that said, be a kind human, because it's just little things like we just need these little reminders. And there's so much going on in the world. And there's just this being kind is one of my biggest things too, is because I've learned I've not been the nicest to myself. I so mean to myself, the way I talk, imposter syndrome, like, this woe is me kind of stuff. And even just being kind to your mind, it's just things like that. I make whatever I'm feeling, whatever that meaning is behind it, whatever season I'm in, that's what I'm going to create, and which is pretty cool.
I love that. Yeah, I love how you just said we are the meanest people to ourselves, which is so
Mhm.
crazy. I don't know
It's so
why the
sad.
human brain goes directly to that, but I would
Yeah.
never think the things or say the things I'm thinking to
To
myself to someone else.
anyone else. I'm like the
Yeah,
biggest cheerleader for
I
other
know. I
people.
know.
Like, we need to start. Yeah, it was.
Why not for
Why
ourselves,
not for
girlfriend?
ourselves? Yeah.
Yes. Just going back, I just had a quick question
Mhm.
pop up in my mind. What is the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself through your healing journey and therapy?
Wow, I'm like, I don't think I've gotten that. I haven't been asked that. I just, because there's something about, with my therapist, we talk about how I have to be so strong, but it's just that I am capable of doing these things. And for me, it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything, but I took this tour. It's called Judy's House. I love them. It's a place where people can go, and when they've dealt with the parent loss or a sibling loss, they go, and that's where they get their resources. It's just, wow, I'm learning that there's so much out there that haven't even touched on, but just sharing my story, I just feel like I've met people that, sorry, I'm rambling about it, but it's conversation starters with people that they've been like, I lost my only sibling. And I'm like, we're not gonna be wearing, like, lost my only sibling, but it's these pieces that I'm having this conversation, like, it's okay to share your story. It's okay to talk about things that make you sad. You're not alone, and I think that's the biggest thing. I'm, like, giving myself goosebumps. I'm like, it's just
You're
the
pepping yourself up right
having
now.
yourself out. The more you talk about the things that you go through, I've just learned you're not a burden.
Yeah,
So that was,
and
I think.
actually, it feels so much better to just talk about it.
Mhm,
Like,
and
no matter what it is, just getting it
mhm.
out has been shown to just help so much emotionally. Even if it's just going to a therapist, talking and never talking to anyone else ever again about it, just
Right.
talking it out and not letting it get stuffed so
No.
far down there. So with you, what I'm
Mhm,
hearing is obviously you lost a sibling, and I feel like you
mhm.
said I got super hyper dependent and I had to be so strong. And it's probably just because you didn't want to burden, quote unquote, your
No.
parents with
No.
needing them. Because like they're
Yeah,
already
yeah,
going through so much. And I'm not going to be like,
yeah.
I also need you as well when they needed their own help. So I'm sure you
Yeah.
just very early on developed this
I
like, yeah, just all right, I'm on my own. Like I'm hyper independent. You probably might, if you're like me or an avoidant attachment. I don't know if you've ever done your attachment
I'm
style.
I'm starting to learn about those.
Okay. Go to I
Like,
have an attachment style series going on. So if you go to
okay,
attachmentproject.com,
okay,
it'll tell you what you are. It'll give you this whole quiz. It's a free quiz,
okay. Great.
attachmentproject.com. And we're already so similar. I
I
wouldn't be surprised if you were avoidant
I
attachment.
it's I think.
Yeah. And
And
it's not because with mine, it was like you obviously had an event to where your parents,
Mhm,
quote, had an excuse to not give you maybe the things that you needed at such a young age. Whereas
mhm.
mine was like, my parents just didn't really know how to.
Yeah.
There was no like,
No, I
oh,
mean,
they
same.
couldn't, they weren't around. It was like they were always around, but they just didn't know what to do. So at the age of 29, 30, I'm going back and learning how to parent myself, which is so
Mhm.
hard.
Hard.
But I'm like 3 years in and I'm like you. I like bash myself because I'm like, I'm this old. I should have this. I should be here.
Yeah.
Everyone's else is ahead of me.
Yeah.
But really, when I think about it, I just try to give myself grace because I'm like, I've spent the last 3 years, like, again, parenting myself and like creating a solid, firm foundation where I know that a lot of
Mhm,
people that might have the things and be where they are don't have that solid emotional maturity, emotional
mhm,
intelligence foundation. So I'm like, I'm okay with stepping back a little bit and sacrificing,
mhm.
not maybe getting to where I want to be right now. But when I do get there, I know I'll be able to sustain it a lot longer than most people that might crash and burn later because now they have to go back and deal with
Mhm.
something that they never worked through. So
Right.
give yourself grace. And
Yes,
I
that's
think
the
you're doing
biggest thing.
amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So what is your goal with Happy Fits and the mission behind it?
Yeah, just honestly, it's creating it's like what you do, creating these things that spark conversation and relatability. I just yeah, honestly, my goals are just I want to keep growing and building a community. Like this is honestly a dream. I'm like just talking about it. Putting myself out there. I would love to work with places like Judy's house to give profits and just be a mentor for those that might need it or are going through the same thing that I've went through because I didn't have that. And it's not to just shame what I went through. It's just seeing that there's so much opportunity to help other people. That's something I think being a nurse, I'm seeking something to help people. So the goal is for Happy Fits is to just keep creating this community, growing in ways I haven't touched. I'll have to come to you for TikTok, YouTube. I haven't touched that stuff. It's a lot of work. And that's why I love working with the young gals because they also show me like, oh, you just do this. And I'm like, oh, I feel like my mom.
Girl, sometimes you gotta be a one-man band for a little bit when you're
I
first starting
know.
out. I
Yeah,
know. Yeah, I
I know.
totally get it. And I saw you on the news. So you're
Yes.
getting somewhere. You were on the news, which is pretty
That was
cool.
so scary because you go from not telling your story at all to now I'm like, am I oversharing? I've also learned there's some things where you're like, read the room, talk, just keep talking. People are
Yeah.
gonna, I'm like, why do I love these Netflix documentaries so much? It's because, oh, they're sharing their story. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
I relate to that.
Yeah. I think you have a good thing going just because usually I would say it's nice to have something where like, I can see you just being, like, a speaker, like, eventually
Thank you.
being a motivational, inspirational speaker and
Mhm,
sharing your story. It's just about
mhm,
sharing your story, but the fact that you do have this, like, introductory, "Oh, we're gonna bring Michelle in c because she has her apparel,"
mhm.
but then you
That,
also get that chance to share your
yes,
story, and then the
yes,
more you do that, then the more you'll just keep getting op more
yes.
opportunity and more opportunity, so
Oh,
you
fingers
have
crossed.
yeah, you have an actual story and purpose
Mhm.
and calling behind what you're doing as opposed to, "I just to make
I think
cute shirts."
I think that was my biggest thing, and I forgot to mention it, but it was like seeing and not to knock anybody what they're doing and because everyone has their story, but there's some stuff that you see and I'm like, yeah, toxic positivity is also very much a thing where you can slap something on a shirt and just be like, just be happy. And I don't want to be happy. I'm not feeling happy today. So that's a little bit like having reminders on the sleeves or just pieces that like I made a hat that has said not in the mood. And my mom was like, what does it mean not in the mood? I was like, some days I'm just not in the mood. So there's like something for every type of feel that I pushed to compartmentalize. So I'm bringing that out into my apparel.
And that's relatable because
Mhm.
if you're feeling it, someone else
Yes,
has probably
I
felt it
know.
or feels it right now. I am the
Right.
exact same way. Exact same way, I know. It's so fun creating the merch, I feel and same with you. I honestly
Yeah.
just if it's a book I'm reading or journal kind of series I'm going through, there's
Mhm.
usually some one topic that I'm going through that I'm like,
Resonated.
"Ooh, okay, that would be great merch," and so we created around that, and it's so fun. So I love all your pieces, they're so
Thank
colorful, the
you.
colorways are amazing. I'm gonna
Thank
have to
you.
order
Oh my
order
gosh.
something.
I'm gonna send you a
No,
thank
I
you.
support you. Maybe
That's
we could
also the one thing I'm learning. Like, accept that people want to support you.
yes, accept that, and yeah, and just let it get all over the US because I'll be
Yes.
wearing it in Florida, and I'll be like, "My friend in Denver made this, and here's the website." So last question, what
Yeah.
advice do you have for people needing to feel and heal?
Mhm. Ooh. Let's take my own advice too. I gotta what I'm about to say is just I think I mentioned it many times. You've said it, you deal with it, not being a burden. Know that whatever you're going through, a lot of the times it is temporary. I lost a sibling, but you also life does go on. So it's how you deal with that situation and know that healing is not linear. I'm 20 years into this trauma, which I didn't even realize was a trauma, and learning that every day is different. The healing is one step forward, two steps back. I'm like, why is something that I'm watching making me cry? Feel your feels. And that's why I have a sweatshirt that says feel your feels because I'm someone who never did. And I've learned that your body, if you hold things in, the stress, the cortisol levels. Like I'm like, why am I sick all the time? Feel your feels. And whether it's, if you don't know how to, make a playlist. Taylor Swift helps me get in those feels. Write things down. Just let yourself sit in it and know that, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Let's go from there. And just find things that make you happy. I think that's key.
I love it. I love how you said your body will tell you. Have you heard of or read the book, Your Body Keeps the Score?
I've heard there's so much that I need to.
There's so many books on healing, but
now that I'm tapping into it, and when I had that conversation with my mom, I'm like, whoa, there's so much out there. And so now I'm just like drinking it all in. So I need to get that book. I need to do more reading.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a therapist. It's just everything that I've learned from going to therapy and just friends and people who talk about their feelings.
Yeah. Let me tell you, it's once you're in it, girl. There's no getting out.
I know. Now I'm like, what?
There's no getting out, but I love it. Just, I love it. If you can just push past those very uncomfortable, awkward first couple of weeks, months, whatever it is for you with whatever you're dealing with, then it's so much better to just know how to share your feelings and talk about them and get them out right away. Cause then you just feel like a clean, blank, empty slate that has like no resentment, no guilt, no shame. And it's so much better than going through life trying to distract your way through life and keep busy. And
is what I was doing.
Yeah. Same. You did sports. I was working out. I was like, oh, I'm just going to go to the gym and distract myself and not think about it. And then I'm going to fill my day with 20 errands that I really don't even have to do.
You don't need to spending money that I don't need to spend, but retail therapy.
Yes. Yeah. And then rock bottom hits and then COVID hit and sitting at the house, not doing anything except in my own thoughts. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, crap, I'm going to have to deal with this. So as much as 2020 was really a crazy time and so many horrible things happened, like I honestly credit it to a lot of positive things that came from it in my life. So yeah, thank you so much for jumping on. Okay, wait, where can people find you, follow you, and order some merch?
About every single social media outlet. I'm trying to build that Instagram. So also appreciate you following along. Yeah. It's at Where Happy Fits. That's pretty much every handle, Pinterest. Haven't dabbled with YouTube yet, but TikTok. And then just my website is wherehappyfits.com.
I love it. All right, everyone go check it out. Order some merch, start the conversation.
That's my tagline is Happy Fits on everyone because
oh my gosh. I love that. Oh my gosh. Happy Fits on everyone. Love it. That'll be the title of this episode, maybe.
Thank you so much for having me.
Next time I'm in Denver, because we do have friends there we went there earlier this year. But anyway, next time I'm there, I'm definitely going to reach out.
Yes, we need. Yeah. Thank you. This is not.
I'm going to work out.
Beginning.
Yeah. If you're still there, if you're not like rocking the merch where you don't have to work there anymore, then I'll come get a workout.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.